you can get addicted to this whole idea of releasing stuff. And I've said it before, if you go looking for karma, you're going to find karma. If you go digging in a hole and you keep digging, you're going to keep finding dirt. So you have to do a little bit of work and then keep living your life. And this is why having structure in your life is so important, so that you do your hatha yoga once or twice, once a day or every other day. You get a massage once a week or once a month if you can. And you just let that be part of the natural process, because that will move you through all the stuff you need to move through as you go, and you won't get addicted to it. You won't be constantly saying, I need to process more. Because this will be true with anger, with grief, with confusion, with sadness, with anxiety, with fear. Eventually, you just have to knock it off. It doesn't matter how much counseling you do, how much body work you do. If it's persistent for a long, long time, forget about all those people who say, well, maybe you haven't faced your shadow side yet. Maybe, but more than likely you're just addicted to a feeling of anxiousness, depression, sadness, anger. And there comes a point in time where you just have to say, enough. I'm not giving into that anymore. I don't have it memorized, but there's I think it's a Native American idea that there are two wolves within you. One is a wolf of hate and the other is a wolf of love. Or maybe it's fear, but you get the idea. And the Native American youngster asked the elder, well, how do you manage this? And he said, well, you feed the one that you want to grow strong. So in you, you can feed your fear, your anxiety, your depression by constantly looking for more things to process. Or while you're processing it, sure, you're taking care of it, you're letting it go. You also cultivate a sense of love, a sense of certainty, a sense of knowledge, letting go of confusion, a sense of, I'm not angry anymore. And there comes a point in time where you just have to say, enough, I'm done with it, and then move on. And the reason I'm moving in this direction is because it leads to the first part of the question. So we're moving from the bottom up, of how is it possible for someone like me to complete the work in one lifetime, or maybe half a lifetime? I've been a literal child into my 40s, and so on. Well, this person has been in the Kriya Yoga apprenticeship program for 2 years. They've been doing the work to the best of their ability, I know, and they've come to this realization, or they would not have sent me this email. They've come to the realization that I've been a literal child into my 40s. And that's a wonderful realization to have, because most people are children until the day they die. So you're already ahead of the curve if you're into your 40s and you've recognized, I have been a child until now. Now, how does this tie into what we've been discussing in the previous sections? Well, remember, yesterday I discussed that the momentum that we have in life, that is what is directing where we go and what we experience. And that most people have momentum going in 300 different directions. So it's like a blob of energy with momentum going in 300 different directions. And there's infinite space, so it can go anywhere, up, down, left, right, in, out. But there's so much momentum, equal momentum going in all these 300 different directions that it becomes kind of like a gyroscope, where it's just staying in place. It's not going anywhere because this is canceled out by this force, and that force is canceled out by this force. And so it all stays in place. So how do you change that? Well, like this individual in the Kriya Yoga apprenticeship course discovered, you become aware of that fact. I've been a child into my 40s, which means, translates to, I've been pulled in so many different directions, from subconscious conditioning I'm not aware of, as she mentioned in the email, to subconscious conditioning I am aware of, that I'm stuck. So how can I progress? Well, right now you have the awareness. That is the first. You flipped on the light switch, you see the situation. Once you see a situation, all you can do is start to make a plan. And the first step in this plan is take stock of where you want to go first. What is your ultimate aim? What is it that you want to experience first? Because that will begin to define in regards to this big ball of momentum, which one of these 300 directions do you want that ball to start rolling towards? You got to get clear on that. And again, how do you do that? I know which way I want to go. I can feel it. I know it. You might not mentally yet, but you begin to bring up the feeling inside and wait for those responses to come forth. Then you decide that is the direction I'm going in. We talked previously about cutting out distractions in your life, focusing on one or two things so you actually have a better chance of succeeding. Well, now, once you know what direction you want to go in, you can start to pay attention to your mind. You can pay attention to how are you being pulled around? Who's pulling you this way? What thoughts are pulling you that way? What little things do you think you'd like to do, but you know you'll never really achieve, and it's just kind of a waste of time? What are these things? And then you start just saying, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm not going to do that anymore. Really simple example. I use a lot of heavy examples, so I'm going to give you a very light example. I've been a musician my entire life, since I was about 9 years old. I can remember being before 9 years old. I had a little Smurf record player, and I had a little plastic guitar that probably wasn't in tune. And I remember I would go grab one of my mom's records, and I'd take the record player in the room, and I'd turn it on, and I'd get that plastic guitar out, and I'd go hide behind the dresser so in case anyone walked in, no one would see me, and I'd just beat on that guitar and dance around. So I've been interested in music from a very, very young age. But when I was 9, I began playing guitar. Since I began playing guitar, I've learned how to play the mandolin, I've learned how to play the banjo, I've learned how to play the octave mandolin, I can play the hurdy-gurdy, I've tried to play the violin. I've tried to play the penny whistle. I've tried to play a type of drum. Anyway, you can see there's been lots of things that I've had interests in when it comes to this. So I've gotten very good at a few of those. A few years ago, I decided, you know what? I'm done playing everything else except one instrument. So I decided all the instruments that I've accumulated over the years, I'm going to sell, and I'm going to buy the best instrument I can get of this one instrument I want to learn how to play and I want to master. I decided that between 40 years old and 60 years old, that's what I'm doing. So now I have a plan. Am I going to waste my time picking up the mandolin, picking up the guitar? No, I'm focusing on mastering this one instrument between 40 and 60. That's 20 years. I think that's a good amount of time. So much so that in the group of musicians I started playing with, I told them from the beginning, I said, look, I'm not very good at this instrument. I'm very good at other instruments, but I'm not picking up any other instruments. And luckily, they were all very kind and supportive, and they said, sure, yeah, you suck, you're terrible, but we know you're probably going to get better. So we played together, and once I got out my mandolin, because I thought it would be really great if I could play something cool to this, what we're doing. And I got out my mandolin, I started to play it, and the violinist looked at me and said, what are you doing? Put that away. That's not what you're playing anymore. So I had a supportive group of people to keep me on track in that regard. So this is an example of how you take stock of what are you doing? There are other dumb stuff that I did too. I was very much interested in various different kinds of weight training, alternative healing. I said, no, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm focusing on learning this instrument. I'm focusing on my inner work, my Kriya yoga practice, and teaching. That's all I do. If I've got time for anything else, that's fine. But my main focus are on these things. This is how we have to approach it. So if you're 40 and you're in your 40s or 50s or even 60s, it doesn't really matter how old you are, because you got to get out of thinking that you're just this one human lifetime. You are much more than this one human lifetime. So even if you're 78 or 80 and you just now decide to start practicing yoga or studying these things, that's great, because that is the moment in time where that's the initiation point. That's the moment in time where now you're going to start, your life trajectory is going to start changing. Maybe you only got 2 years left in this body, but that decision now, if we're using the theory of reincarnation, will alter the trajectory of every future lifetime. So we need to get out of our minds this idea of, I only have this amount of time. I only have that amount of time. My wife died when she was 42. Okay, so she obviously did not know how much time that she had, whereas other people I've known, my grandparents lived into their 90s, 100 and so. So we have to do our best with where we are and with what we are doing, and forget about all that little negative self-talk that we're too old, it's too late in life, I'm too confused. Well, the way you get through that is to start deciding you feel different. And that's going to be the biggest challenge and the biggest hurdle that you overcome, because it requires letting go of this character that you've made up for yourself, which you're so damn invested in. I get it. Believe me. I get that. But you're not the character. This character is the way it is because you made it that way. You made this character, which means there's nothing wrong with deciding to change the character, because you're the one in charge. Everyone else who likes you staying the way you are, well, that's their own problem, because they're stuck in their own life and they're not adaptable. They don't want to change. But that's not for you. So don't worry about all these thoughts, all these concerns, all these worries. The only thing you really have to worry about is, what are you deciding right now? And can you sustain those decisions until the way you feel now? Well, how do I say this? So right now you feel the way you feel, but that's normal. Well, now imagine where you want to go, what you want to experience. You need to keep working towards that until that becomes the new normal. That's the only way it happens. In Vedic astrology, I know I've already touched upon this, there's a description of 3 different kinds of karma. There's the kind of karma you're working out in this life. There's really old karma that's sort of universal. There's the karma of past lifetimes that you don't even know about. But what we have to remember is that, using the example of astrology, the reason astrology works is because pretty much everyone's on autopilot. And the moment they're born, there's a particular trajectory for that soul, if we want to think about it like that. And that trajectory is going to keep moving in that direction. So a good astrologer can look at the chart, and if the person's just been on autopilot, just doing whatever's unconscious for them, living like an animal or whatever you want to say, they know that they're just going to say, all right, you're going in this direction, so pretty much in 20 years, this is where you're going to end up. You don't need astrology to tell you that. You can just talk to someone and find out, where are they, what do they think, how are they talking, what do they believe in, and you can pretty much predict where they're going to be in the future. But this is how astrology works. But that's the momentum from the past, which means that as long as you continue to sustain that momentum by either not changing or just actively feeding it, yeah, you're going to keep moving in that direction. But the moment that you start making different decisions now, changing the direction now, that's like you're in the car, you're driving forward, and you decide to put your foot on the brake. Well, that's going to slow the car down. So you have to put the foot on the brake, and that is becoming aware. And then you start, instead of looking forward and going in the direction that you've been mindlessly going, you think, well, where do I really want to go? I think I'd like a donut. So how about, instead of going to Chinese, I want to get a donut. So you change your direction. So the momentum keeps going until you alter the force of the momentum. And you have to alter the force of the momentum coherently, meaning it has to make sense and it has to be consistent. If I said, yes, I want to learn this new instrument, and I practiced once or twice a month, you really think I'm going to be that good in 20 years? No. But if I know I've got to get up, I've got to meditate, I've got to make breakfast, I've got to do some yard work, I've got to come in, answer a bunch of emails, do a bunch of podcasts, talk to some people, schedule some classes, post some classes, and then for 45 minutes to an hour, I want to play my instrument every day. And I do that. Well, I might not get that good real quick, but in 20 years' time, that 45 minutes to an hour is going to build up. So it's all about having a sense of direction, organization, being consistent and coherent. Also, you have to do it intelligently. If I tried to learn this instrument by myself, I could probably figure it out. That's how I learned to play guitar pretty much, and I'm a pretty good guitar player. But I've got 20 years now. I'm not 9 anymore. I don't know how much time I have. Compared to my wife, I might have 1 year left. Who knows? So I want to make the most of it. So I decided I'm going to get lessons. I'm going to learn from the very best people I can. and I want to make the most of those lessons. So I scheduled lessons with people who I know are experts. I don't sit there and ask them, well, why do I do this? I just do what they tell me. I take the videos that they've made because they're on Zoom, because all these really good instructors live across the ocean. And then I go back and I edit out the videos of when they're telling me to do certain things, and I repeat that over and over again, and I practice it over and over again. So in order to get the most out of your time, number one, where are you going? Number two, what distractions do you have to give up or sacrifice that we've discussed in the previous talk? Number three, do you know what you're doing? Start with the feeling, yes, I know what I'm doing, but then be practical. And if there's someone out there who knows how to do it, learn from them, do what they do, and then just get rolling and do it consistently every day, whether you want to, whether you like it or not. That's the way I treat my meditation. That's the way I treat my spiritual study. That's the way I treat my musical instrument. There are days that I play terrible, and there are days that I don't want to do it. But I say, you know what? If I keep going and I do it even though I don't like it, I'm going to get better. So you have to treat everything in life that way. And then you won't be worried about how much time you have left. You won't be worried about what my purpose is. You will know that you are actively engaged in this life. And that is the greatest thing that you can do. Not getting to some defined end, but being actively engaged, because you don't know where your life ultimately is going. You may have a purpose in mind, and you may get there exactly where you're supposed to be. But you might find that really the purpose that you think you had was the carrot on the stick that allowed you to have all these wonderful relationships with people, to have all these wonderful experiences, to grow mentally, emotionally, spiritually, to grow in discipline. That's why I want to encourage people to try to play musical instruments or take up hobbies, because that will increase your discipline, and that will also translate over into your spiritual practice. Someone posted a comment here, breaking the habit of being yourself. That's exactly what you're doing. And you've heard me say this before. There was the show called That 70s Show, which is a little comedy in the 2000s or so. And I remember one of the main characters saying one time to one of the other characters, there's nothing wrong with yourself that changing yourself completely couldn't fix. So if you feel that you're not where you need to be, well, you might need to change a few things, but remember, there's nothing wrong with you that changing yourself completely couldn't fix. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with changing completely. If it's more in line with that sense of knowing what you are about and moving towards it and feeling faith in life, that is perfectly fine. I'm a radically different person than I was 20 years ago. I think any of the people that knew me 20 years ago would attest to that. And I'm okay with that. I'm not going to hold on to 20-year-old Ryan because it's not the way he was. Might have been all right for the time, but it's not useful now. And we have to be able to grow into that.